This video is going to take a look at CVP analysis, which is that cost, volume, profit analysis. We're going to be looking at break-even points, contribution margins. We will be looking at targeted income amounts. We'll also be looking at what happens to make a decision as far as changing different things around. In this particular item on the worksheet, it's number 1 on your worksheet. Let's say we produce a product that sells for $50. The fixed costs are $260,000. Variable costs are $24 per unit. We can buy, so that's that first part. Let's stop there and look at it. So if we just look at this part, what's happening currently. So currently, what we have is we have fixed costs that are equal to $260,000. Our variable cost is $24. And we have a sales of $50 is what we currently have with this particular problem. So if we wanted to go through and do the analysis with this information, we could figure out what point would we break even if we stay with what we have. So in doing that, the first step in this is to find the contribution margin. Now the contribution margin is the sales minus that variable cost. So what I would do here is I would take the $50 and I would subtract that $24 from that, and I would get $26 is what my contribution margin would be. If I wanted to know what my break-even point would be in units, then what I would do is I would take that fixed cost and then divide it by my contribution margin. So in this case, my fixed cost is at $260,000 and I have a $26 contribution margin. And so the amount of units that I would have to produce in this particular situation would be 10,000 units. All right, so that's the baseline where I start from. Now they want me to evaluate another situation, and the other situation says that we can buy a new production machine. It's going to increase our fixed cost by $11,040, but it will decrease our variable cost by $350 per unit. So now we're going to really look at what the worksheet is asking. So that first question is, so what is the variable cost? Well, and actually your answer key is not right, so I'm going to have to look at and do a different answer key for you than the one that's out there for this particular problem. Because what happens with variable cost, we started with $24. It tells us that we are going to decrease it by $350. So we start with 24, we take away the $350, then we're going to end up with $20.50 being our new variable cost. Now what about fixed cost? In the problem, it tells us that we are starting with a fixed cost of $260,000. We are adding additional fixed cost of $11,400, and so this is going to give us a total fixed cost of $271,400. And so what we will do now, the first step, so right now we have our variable cost, we have our fixed cost. The first step here is to find that contribution margin. Now remember I said contribution margin was sales minus variable cost. So if our contribution margin is 50, and then we have our variable cost, which was at $20.50. So now what we can do is we take 50 minus 20.5, and we're going to have $29.50 is what our contribution margin is going to be. So to find our break-even point, oh, the next one wants us to do our contribution margin ratio, sorry. So our contribution margin ratio is looking at our contribution margin divided by sales. So in this case, our contribution margin was $29.50. Our sales figure was 50. And so we will have a contribution margin ratio. Let's see, it's 29 of 59%. Is what we will have for our contribution margin ratio in this particular instance. D for your worksheet, well, not D, I'm sorry, E. E for the worksheet says how many units must they make to break even. So remember, for our units, our break even in units is going to be our fixed cost divided by our contribution margin. Well, our fixed cost here, remember we changed those and those went up to $271,400, and then our contribution margin was at that $29.50. Yeah, $29.50. So now when I look at this, I end up with $9,200 is my break even in units. Now if I wanted to find out what my break even in sales dollars is, there's two ways I can do this. The easiest way is I can take my break even in units, multiply it by my sales price. So in this particular case, I could take the $9,200, multiply it by the $50, and I would end up with $460,000. Another way that I can do it and find that break even in sales dollars is I can take my fixed cost and I can divide it by the contribution margin ratio. So in this case, my fixed costs were at $271,400, and that ratio was at 59%. And you will see I will get the same amount when I do this math at the $460,000. Now, one thing I want us to look at, if we go back, and if you're trying to make a decision, one of the things I want you to see here is that our break even in units before was at 10,000. If we put this into fruition, if we purchase this piece of equipment, then our break even would actually only be 9,200. Now realize, what does a break even point mean? The break even point is when we stop losing money and then we sell one more, we're going to be making money. So what this is actually saying is, under this old system, we had to sell 10,000 units before we would break even. If we purchase this new one, we are only going to have to sell 9,200. Now what this means is that we are going to make more profit here because we don't have to sell as many. So in this case, we would definitely want to do this. We would want to go in, we would want to purchase this piece of equipment and reduce that variable cost, because it's going to be better for us in the long run. So that is a decision-making thing that we want to look at. Do we stay with what we have, or do we purchase a new piece of equipment? And in this case, using this break-even analysis, it says, yes, please go ahead and purchase this piece of equipment because you'll be able to make more money quicker. The other thing that this looks at is if they want a profit. So let's say that they want to make a profit of $10,000. Then what we have to do to figure out how many units they need to sell to make this profit is we need to take the the $271,400. We need to add the profit that we want to make to that and divide that by that contribution margin of the $29.50. So if I take 271,400 plus 100,000, I'm going to get 371,400. If I divide that by that contribution margin of 29.50, what this is saying is I need to produce 12,589.83. Now, can you produce a partial unit? No, you cannot. So we do have to round up, and our break-even point here would be 12,590 units. That is how many units we will have to produce to make that target of $100,000 in profit. So this is using CVP analysis to go through and answer all of these different questions. And we can use CVP analysis. Marketing is really going to use it when they're looking at, what are our price points, how much can we make, and things like that. Production's going to use CVP analysis. So management really needs to understand CVP analysis. Marketing really needs to understand CVP analysis. So this is something that is widespread that everybody in the company really, really needs to understand so that they can make decisions. And again, it can be a decision-making tool when we are looking at something like this with, well, how much do we need to sell? Is it feasible? This is something you can look at if you're wanting to start a company. Can I really sell this many of these units? Is this something that is feasible that I can do? Am I going to be able to make money with this idea that I have? So these are some of the ideas and some of the things that you would have to be able to work to make those decisions.